Okay, so we're gonna go over the Walker side frame. So this is what the side frame looks like. Yeah. So to begin, I had to make a sketch of the shape of the side frame, which is just made out of 3 lines, which I then dimensioned 14, 7, and 14. And then since we wanted to make the shape of our frame like rounded and circular, like a pipe, I wanted to use the sweep feature. Then to use the sweep feature, I need a starting point at one end of the pipe. So to make that starting point, I first had to make a new plane. And for this plane, I just my first reference is just the endpoint of the side frame, and then my second reference is the top plane, just parallel to the top frame, to the top plane. So once I have the plane, I just made another sketch on that plane, which is this circle right here. The size of this circle will be the diameter of my frame, how thick my frame is. So once I made that sketch, I can now use the sweep feature. And to use the sweep feature, I just use the circle that I made as the profile, which will be how thick the sweeping would be. And then for my path, I just chose the shape of the frame that I made, this part. Once I've done that, it'll be come out to the side frame. And then since we're making our Walker out of aluminum, it's gonna be pretty strong for just children. So we made it hollow so that would be lighter. So to make it hollow, I just used the shell feature, and I just made my shell 0.0625 inches, and then that would make the frame of the Walker hollow. So once I've done that, I just need to make the holes, because these holes would be where we attach the top sidebar, the bottom sidebar, and this one right here would be where we have the leg extension. For the holes, I just use Hole Wizard, and I use 0.25 inches because that's the standard sizing. So that will make it easier to coordinate with all the parts. So once I've made the hole, then the side frame is complete. The next part I want to go over is the sidebar of the Walker. So to make the sidebar, the first thing I did was to just sketch a line, and this line, this measurement is based on the width of the side frame, which is 7. Once I made the sketch, I just used revolve to make it round, and I made it 0.2, and I made the radius 0.25 because that's the standard sizing that we're going to use for the thickness of our frames. So once I've done that, I need to make these cutouts so that it perfectly fit onto the side frame. So to do that, I just made two arcs, then I close that with a line, and these arcs have a radius of 0.25, because that's how thick the radius of the side frame would be. And I coincide the center of these arcs with the end of the line so that these two will perfectly match up in this, like exactly in the middle. And once I've done that, I just need to extrude cut those things, which is simple. So once I was cut those out, I just made the holes right in the center of the two ends. These holes will be where we put in the bolt and have the sidebar attached to the side frame. And I also made the holes 0.25 because that's the consensus that we're going to use for all our holes. So it'll be easier to handle. And with the holes done, the sidebar is finished. So this part is one part of the hinge, which looks like that. So to make this, the first thing I did was to make the base. And the base is just a rectangle that's 0.5 by 1.5, then extruded by 0.1, using a mid-plane extrude. So once I've gotten my base down, I made these holes right here. This is where like you would attach the frame to stuff. So I made this hole 0.25, like the consensus. And then I made them 0.25 from one edge and 0.25 from the other edge, and then 1 inch apart from each other. Then I use a extrude cut to just cut them out. And once I've cut the holes, I then make the rounded part up here of the hinge where will allow the hinge to fold and stuff. So for that, I made the circle part. So to do that, the first thing I did was make one circle that's 0.25, and I made it coincident with one of the edge of the base, so that it will always be attached. And then I made the other circle 0.13, and I made the center of this 0.11 from the edge, so that it will be right in the middle. And once I've done that, I just had to extrude it using boss extrude. I extrude it to the right, and since this whole length of of the hinge is 1.5, each of this part is going to be 0.5. So I extrude this by 0.5. So once I've done that, I did a linear pattern to get this part right here. So to make this pattern, I just chose the feature, chose this feature, and then chose I need to make two of them. I chose this feature, and I need to make two of them. And I knew they're 1.1 inch away from each other, and that would be like the perfect measurement because this whole thing is 1.5. Once I've done that, this part is finished, and then this is the other part of the hinge, which is basically the same thing, except for where this circular part up here is. So to make this part, I made a new plane first. So to make this plane, I made it parallel. I used this face as a reference because I just wanted it over here. So I just used an offset. I made the offset 0.5 away because that's where this part would start, because each of the circular part is 0.5. So once I've set up that plane, I just made the same sketch that I did for the circular part on the other side, exact same sketch with two circles. Then I extruded them 0.5 this way, which would make this part. And so this part and the two circle part of the first hinge would fit perfectly together. So once I've done that, I need to make the pin where the two hinge can be connected. This is what the pin looks like. So to make the hinge, I first made the base part of the hinge, which is just that circular part. So I first made a circle that's 0.25, and then I just extruded it for 0.155. I did 0.155 because the length of the hinge is 1.5. So 1.5 would be from here to here, and leaving this part out so that the hinge would be long. So the pin would be longer than the hinge, so it'll stick out and not just fall through. Once I've done that, I just made the pin the same size as the hole that I made in the hinge, which is 0.13. Yeah, so to make that part, I just drew a circle on the base that I made, which is and then I made it 0.13, the same size as the hole that I made on the hinge, so that they'll fit together. So once I've done that, I just needed to use extrude cut. To cut out the outside part and keep the inner part. And I cut it to 1.5 because that's the length of the hinge. So once I cut that, that would create the pin, and so now the pin is finished. So this part is the front bar that we will attach the seat to using hinges. So to make this part, the first thing to do is make the base. Which is just a rectangular piece. So to make this, I just made a sketch of a rectangle that's 9 by 5, and then I extrude it by 0.5 inches. So once I make the base, the next part is to make this circular part extension here and here. So the circular parts are to put the side frame into, because we didn't want it to be attached directly into the side frames, or else we wouldn't be able to fold our walker. So to make this part, I just needed to make a circle sketch, a sketch of a circle. So our frame is 0.5 in diameter. I made the so I made this outside circle 0.63, and then made another inner circle and made the difference between them 0.05, which means that this inner circle is 0.58, which is bigger than the diameter of the frame, which will allow the frame to fit into the circle. So once I've drawn this sketch, I just extruded them. So when I extruded, I selected the middle part between the two circles, so that it will extrude this part only. I made it 0.5, which is the same length as the base. So once I've done that, it looks like this. So then I have to cut this part out by just using cut extrude. And I cut it using the inner circle that I sketched earlier. So the next thing we're going to do is cut these holes. These holes are going to be where we attach the hinges. So their sizing should be the same as the hinges, which makes all these holes 0.25 inches. And the distance between them is still going to be 1 between each holes, and then 0.25 from the edge, because that's how the hinge was dimensioned. And then I made the distance between these two holes 2.5, so they'll be spaced out. And I made them 1.25 from the center, so that if I had to extend this bar, the holes will still be from the center, not shift. So once I've made the sketch, I just need to cut out these holes using a extrude cut. So once the holes are cut, then this part is complete. This is the seat of the walker, which looks like that. So to make the seat, the first thing I did was to make the base of the seat, which is a rectangle that is 4 by 10, and then I extruded it by 0.75. So that will give us this shape. So once I've made my base, I need to make one end of it smaller. So I need to make this. I need to make this because our walker is only 9 inches from the one end to the other, so this has to be shorter than 10 inches because this is 10 inches long, but then this part is still 10 inches because this is two the two because these two ends will be resting on the sidebar so that it'll stop the seat from falling all the way down. So I just sketched these out. So I just made these sketches, 3x1 and 3x1, two rectangles, and then I just cut them out. And then the next thing I did was to make the holes at the bottom of the seat. These holes are where we attach the hinges on. So the sizing of these holes are the same as the other holes, 0.25, and all the dimension or like the distance from one hole to the other I made it coincide with the hinge, so so each of these two holes are 1 inch from each other, and they're 0.25 from the edge. I lined them up to the middle, so they're 0.25 to the middle of the base. Then they're going to be 2.5 from each other. So that's like, I think that looks like evenly spaced out, so I just chose that. And then once I've finished the sketch, I just cut out the holes. I didn't cut them all the way through. I just cut them 1.5 into it because the seat isn't that thick. The screws we're going to use ain't that long either. I need to extend those two parts because once the seat rests on the sidebar, it'll have a slight angle if I don't extend these. So extending this will ensure that the seat, once it rests on the sidebar, it will be at a 90-degree angle. So to do that, I just made two rectangles on the bottom face of the seat, like just coincide with on the edges in the line. Then I just extruded them downwards by another 0.95 inches. So they'll create that shape, which perfect. So once I've done that, I need to cut out this two arcs right here, so that these two arcs will rest perfectly on the side frames. So since these are going to rest on the side frame, since these are going to rest on the sidebars, I wanted to make them a little bit bigger than the side frames. So since the radius of the side frame is 0.25, I made these 0.35s to give it more leeway if anything goes wrong. So I just made these two arcs 0.35 in radius, and then I closed them off with a line. I also made the distance from the edge to the starting point of my base so that arc will be right in the middle. I did the same thing on this side. Once I've done that, I just extrude cut them, and once that is finished, then the seat is completed.